Good morning. Welcome to the Daily Word. Today we're in Mark chapter 9, verses 1 to 29, and the focus here is the transfiguration, at least what I want to zero in on. And what we see is significant for a couple of reasons, which I will explain. But first, a good idea of what is happening is merited. Mark records that 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John and brought them up to a high mountain by themselves, and he was transfigured before them. You might say, well, what does that mean? Mark helps us understand what is happening. His garments became radiant and exceedingly white, verse 3, as no launderer on earth could ever whiten them. Elijah appeared to them along with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. So you got Moses, Elijah, and Jesus hanging out. Peter decides that it might be a good idea to raise 3 tabernacles there for the 3 of them. And then a voice comes from heaven and says, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him." So the affirmation of the Father. And this is, of course, another instance, besides even the baptism of Jesus with John the Baptist, where a voice comes from heaven and says, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." They're coming down the mountain, and he gave them orders not to relate to anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man should rise from the dead. So he says, don't tell anyone what you've seen till after. They begin to discuss the statement in verse 10 as what he might mean by raising from the dead. Well, they ask him about Elijah and what the scribe said. He says, "Why is it that the scribes say that Elijah must come first?" They ask Jesus this question, and he says to them, "Elijah does first come and restore all things, and yet how is it written of the Son of Man that he should suffer many things and be treated with contempt? But I say to you that Elijah has indeed come, and they did to him whatever they wished, just as it is written." What the transfiguration is doing is proving once again who Jesus was and who he is. This would affirm for the disciples that he was the Christ. They've seen him in his humanity, and now they're seeing him in his deity. No other explanation could be had except for them to say, wow, this truly is the Son of God. Now, even just as significant would be this idea that he's dialoguing with Moses and Elijah, certainly pointing to the fact that he has been the one that was foretold. Even Elijah and Moses, as great as they were not the Messiah. They were not the one who was to come. They're not the one who Isaiah prophesied about. The Old Testament, in many ways, giving way to the life of Christ. And then his life now being the thing, or the foundation that the church is built upon. Another significant thing, besides this confirming in the Old Testament the life of Christ now coming, it would affirm for the disciples that Jesus was really who he was. This would give great assurance to John and to Peter as they await the return of their best friend when he dies, and even before his resurrection. Don't you think they would have been sitting there thinking, what are we going to do now? Where did Jesus go? We miss our friend. They've crucified our Lord. It didn't all make sense completely yet, but when he had risen from the dead, imagine that all of this would have made complete sense. Throughout other gospel narratives, including the book of John, this is made clear over and over and over. There were things that the disciples didn't quite understand or fully realize till after Jesus rose from the dead. Such a great reminder of the assurance that the Lord offers not only his disciples, but us now. For us, an application in 2021 is the joy of looking at all of this, and while we're not the disciples, we still look with eyes of wonder and excitement and great assurance, seeing that Jesus predicted what would happen, Jesus predicted his death, Jesus predicted his resurrection, and that gives us great affirmation in times like these that he will return again for his church. So whatever you're thinking about this morning or going through today or wondering about in our world, trust in the Lord. He is going to rescue his church, and he is going to establish his kingdom, and his promises will come to pass.